This video is brought to you by Brilliant. 2019 was a very good year for the Tories. Their new energetic leader Boris Johnson led them to their largest victory in a general election since Margaret Thatcher. This provided them with a mandate from the people to get Brexit done, and by all accounts they were on track to do so. There was no virus to worry about, they had a strong leader, and the Labour Party was in disarray, with Jeremy Corbyn presiding over the worst Labour defeat since 1935. Back then, no one predicted that things would end up as they have.
But them's the breaks.
Johnson's gone. Not only is he not Prime Minister, he now has two successors and doesn't even sit in the Commons as an MP. The Tory party is in disarray, the Labour Party is predicted to win the next general election with a huge majority, and the massive Tory majority secured in 2019 has pretty much halved. While much attention has been paid to these first two developments, there's been very little discussion about the shrinking Tory majority, and how, without a general election, it's gone from 87 to a mere 44. So in this video, we'll have a look at how government majorities actually work, why the Tory majority has been reduced by so much, and ultimately why such a reduction in the working majority is just not normal for an incumbent government. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Now, it's worth starting this video by explaining how government majorities are actually calculated. At each general election, the British people elect 650 representatives. For a government to achieve an overall majority, they need to have 326 seats, so half of all the MPs in total plus one. In 2019, the Tories achieved 365 seats, meaning they achieved a simple majority of 80, which is calculated as the difference between all opposition, independent and other MPs and the government's MPs. However, unfortunately, things are complicated a little by the Speaker, Deputy Speakers and Sinn Féin. Following the general election, a Speaker is elected by the House of Commons, and there are currently 4 Deputy Speakers. They're not able to vote in Parliament, except in the case of a tie, and as a result are expected to abandon their party affiliations. This, in effect, brings what's referred to as the effective size of the House of Commons down to 645. Then we get on to Sinn Féin. As an Irish Republican political party, Sinn Féin rejects British political institutions, and therefore doesn't sit in the House of Commons. As they won 7 of the 18 Northern Irish seats in 2019, this reduces the effective size of the Commons down to 638. This means that for a majority, the government needs 320 MPs. When they were elected back in 2019, the Tories won 363 seats, giving them what's referred to as an effective working majority of 87 MPs. Now, just because this was the effective working majority they achieved back in 2019 doesn't mean that it's what it stands at now. A lot's changed since then, and we've seen a bunch of resignations, defections and suspensions. As things stand, the Tories have 341 MPs, reducing their effective working majority from 87 to 44, almost half of what it was. In order for the opposition to win a vote against the government, 23 governing MPs would have to rebel. Well, at least in theory. Realistically, there were a number of independent MPs that would likely vote with the government, something we'll get on to a little bit later. For now, though, let's have a look at how the government's majority has fallen so much. In total, the Tories have lost 21 MPs since 2019. The main reason for this is the number of by-elections they've lost. In total, they've lost 11 of their MPs to by-elections. As we can see, 4 of these by-elections were called as the Tory MP had been accused of some form of sexual misconduct. One of these was called because the Tory MP was caught watching porn in the House of Commons. Another 3 of these were called due to resignations in protest at something. 2 were called because of some breach of lobbying rules, and the final one was simply because the incumbent Tory MP had died. In addition to these by-elections, though, the Tories lost another 3 MPs from withdrawing the whip from individuals accused of sexual misconduct. They've not yet resigned, though, so still sit in the House of Commons as independent MPs. They aren't the only former Tories who sit on the Green benches as independents, though. We also have Matt Hancock, who lost the Tory whip due to his appearance on I'm a Celeb, Andrew Bridgen, who lost the whip for his anti-vax social media posts, Lee Anderson, who lost the whip and joined Reform UK because of his failure to apologise for claiming Islamists had got control of the Mayor of London, Mark Menzies, who lost the whip for allegedly misusing campaign funds, Bob Stewart, who lost the whip following a conviction for a racially aggravated public order offence, and William Ragg, who surrendered the whip after sharing his colleagues' phone numbers on a dating app. The last group of MPs that were elected as Tory MPs in 2019 but no longer sit as Tory MPs are those that have defected. In total, there are 3 MPs that have done this: Christian Wakeford, Dan Poulter and Natalie Elphike, all of whom defected to Labour. Now, the more observant of you may have noticed that we've accounted for 23 Tory MPs lost since 2019, despite the fact that earlier we said that they'd lost 21 MPs net. Well, that's because they've actually also gained 2 MPs. The first was from the 2021 Hartlepool by-election, which was held following the resignation of Labour MP Mike Hill due to accusations of sexual harassment. The second was Lisa Cameron, who defected to the Tories from the SNP in September 2023. With these 2 gains accounted for, we can see how the Tories have gone from 363 MPs to 344 MPs since the 2019 election. As opposition parties currently account for 298 MPs, this gives the Tories a 44-seat effective majority, almost half what it was after the 2019 general election. Now, the question is, how bad actually is this? Well, the Institute for Government has shown that this is actually the second largest reduction in a government's majority during the course of a parliament since 1992, which is just when they started analysing this. The only parliament that saw a larger decline in the government's majority was in 2017, and as the graph shows, this all happened on the same day. In rather unique circumstances, the government actually suspended the whip from 21 Tory MPs who had opposed a no-deal Brexit. And as many of these MPs were given the whip back, the government actually had a reduced majority of just under 40 MPs by the time of the next election. It's likely then that this parliament will end with the biggest reduction in the government's majority since the early 90s, and likely even earlier. As if this wasn't already bad enough for Sunak, it seems that, if polling is to be believed, his majority is on track to reduce a lot more after the next election. Ultimately, underpinning this topic is a lot of data, whether that's economics, trade patterns, polling, or demographics. A lot of the time in politics, you just have to understand the data. So if you want to get a better grasp on these things, I'd recommend Brilliant. They've just introduced a whole bunch of new data courses, which are perfect for learners of any level, taking you through everything from Bayes' theorem to multiple linear regression. It even uses real data sets from the likes of Starbucks, X, and Spotify to bring things to life. I'm not even a super mathematical person, and I still found it easy and enjoyable to work through. That's because of how Brilliant is designed, built around learning by doing, with thousands of interactive lessons in maths, data analysis, programming, and AI. The thing is that, like I said, you can learn all of these things quickly and easily, because Brilliant's courses are split into easy-to-digest chunks. Brilliant helps you build real knowledge in minutes a day, with fun lessons you can do whenever you have time, replacing mindless scrolling on the train or waiting for coffee with something actually stimulating and rewarding. So get learning across all kinds of STEM subjects for free for a full 30 days by clicking the link in the description. That way you'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription, and they'll know that you came from us, which really helps us out.